Hi, good morning everyone. How's everyone doing this today? Well, it's morning for me. Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world today. Thanks again for being here with me for my Tuesday edition live stream. I literally just rolled out of bed like 10 minutes ago. But like I said, I'm trying so hard to get my sleep schedule to be where I can get up every morning early as I can, especially this week because we're doing a photo walk over in Great Falls, which is just one of the national parks here nearby, and we're going to do some pictures, and they want us to be there by 7 a.m. I have to leave my house around 6 a.m. to get there, which means I have to get up at 5 a.m. You think at my age, right? Like, I remember when I was younger, people used to say, or I used to remember, like, old people don't sleep, you know? Like, they sleep 4 or 5 hours a day and they're fine. I'm not finding that's the case. I still need like 7, 8 hours. Otherwise, I'm just dead the whole day. Oh, the coffee's still hot. That's good. Sometimes I'll make the coffee before I start to stream, and then it gets cold by the time I'm actually live. But let me set up my chat windows and everything real quick. There's always something. And copy this. We'll go over to my normal chat window here. See if that's working. Good. All right, awesome. Let's see who's here today. Juan Belforte, good morning. John Follows, good to see you. Rob Shoot Photos, oh my goodness, that's awesome. I don't see you too often in the streams. I guess because of the timing. Maybe this timing works better. What time is it where you are right now? I'm just curious. I think you're a little bit west of me. I think it's even earlier, isn't it? There's an odd buzzing noise. Let me see. I think it's this thing. Hold on. This Zoom H1N1, I have to move it pretty far away from everything. It doesn't seem to resist, like, it's not shielded as well as I had hoped. I don't know. Is that any better? I'm going to put the computer into silent mode, turn the fan down a little bit. Good. Anyway, let me know how that works out. There may be... You should order one of the insulate tumblers for your coffee. They really keep the coffee hot. Yeah, I have a couple actually. I got actually one that looks like a, you know, a lens, right? I'm sure every photographer has one of those. I remember when I got my first one, and it's always a gift. I mean, I don't know too many photographers that buy a lens coffee mug for themselves. You know, if they do, it's fine, but it's buzzing when I'm talking, huh? Let me try. How's that? Did that get rid of the buzzing noise? It's one of the things I can do. I can switch over to like a regular lav mic maybe. It might be the wireless mic picking up all that buzzing. Oh, that's better. Okay, good. Just let me know right away if the sound goes away, because the batteries were all dead on everything when I got up today. I think what I'll do is I'll just switch over to like a regular lav mic. Let me just do that. That way I don't have to worry about it. There. Yeah, that should do it. Now I'm tethered to the computer, so I can't I can't move. So many cables. You guys have like 1 billion cables everywhere? Oh, it's terrible. I hate cable clutter, but I can't avoid it. You know, it's like I got 5 HDMI cables plugged into my new live streaming device, and then the USB and the power, so that's like 6 cables into this one little device. All right, thank you. Yeah, zillion. Oh, hey, Elaine. Let's see. I'm sorry, I didn't see who's here. Rob is here, and hit it with a hammer. That's true. Thomas Sizauskas and Kirk Radford. Good. Yeah, I'm starting to recognize some of the names again, seeing how everybody's here. Oh, you're in Ohio at the same time. That's right. You did tell me that last time. I thought you were just a little west of me. We had this conversation, right? Oh, Liz, how are you? Liz has been a long time. I mean, as many of you are, I assume, has been here. Gosh, she's been following me a long time, and she emailed me early on about some questions. Long time ago. Wow, it's almost since I started my channel. And I'm very flattered, Liz, that you're still with me after all this time. Serge, how are you? Nature, good to see you. And Casper. Yeah, Casper's been posting a lot of awesome pictures. I saw something on Facebook yesterday from you. They weren't like moth photos. I mean, you had some moth photos as always, but there was some kind of scenery or something. I forget what it was. Like a touristy shot, but I can't remember now. My memory is just not what it used to be. Wow, my camera's a little bit hot too. Like I'm, excuse me, slightly overexposed. That's gonna bother me. Hold on. Ah, dang it. Now I'm tethered to the computer. I can't get up and change it. Oh well. I guess I can. I'm so prepared for these streams. Where's my button? Give me 1 second. 1 second. It's bugging me that I'm a little... Holy crap. So that took, let's see, wonder how long that would take. It only took about 3 minutes. Oh my God, what an idiot. What was I was showing you stuff and not explaining anything, right? I was showing you all this stuff and just talking about how many cables there are everywhere, right? So I think that didn't need much talking. I should try that, like just do a whole stream without talking and just use like visuals and see what happens. Anyhow, what was the last thing I was talking about? It was almost interesting. Oh, I was talking about the Canon S5. But thank you, Essie. I was watching a video by Gerald Undone yesterday because I got this bad gas problem right now on the Canon or Panasonic S5, right? Thankfully it's not in the stores yet, so I can't just go and buy it. Otherwise I probably have one now. And it's purely gas. I don't really need it that badly. But yeah, Gerald Undone does an excellent job. And what I remember what I was saying. When I was showing you my little Live Pro device here, this thing, right? I was telling you how I need to do a review on this and maybe a tutorial. It's really sped up my workflow and everything, right? And the company Feel World sent it out to me, and they sent me a t-shirt and a hat too, which is kind of cool. And it's like one of the nicer things that I've gotten, you know, for free, right, in exchange for a review. And Gerald, I was watching Gerald Undone, and he was doing a review on the Panasonic S5. And you know, he disclosed, as he properly does, as you properly should as a, you know, reviewer, that they sent him that camera for free with the lens, like $2,300 retail, And, you know, he's got, I mean, he does an excellent job. He's one of the best online reviewers, I think, you know, of gear. His stuff is a little bit high end though, right? Like I'd say 9 times out of 10, the stuff that he reviews is a little bit higher end than stuff I wouldn't need. And by higher end, I don't mean necessarily expensive, but things that if you're more professional, like doing videography professionally, you would consider buying those kinds of things. And he's also really good at explaining technical terms. I remember he did a review or an explanation of SD cards. Excellent job. And then he did a review on he did an explanation on something else that I can't remember now. But it was on video codecs, I think it was, about the different kinds of codecs for video. You know, another excellent job. You know, nothing's perfect, of course. There were a couple of little things that I thought were, but it's kind of like when a photographer looks at another photographer's pictures, right? There's certain things only other photographers would notice, but to the average person, they see the picture, they don't notice those little things. So I'm being a little bit picky on those videos when I say they're not perfect, but they are excellent, right? And I think the average person, they're not going to notice, right? And you can tell by the number of likes and subscribers and everything that he has that he's doing an excellent job. So well done, Gerald. And he's really good about getting back to people. Because I remember I made a couple of comments on his videos and he always got back to me. So he was really good about that. But that was about a year ago when his channel was about less than half the size. His channel's really grown quite a bit. Anyway, John Yutze says, lots of Panasonic full frame used to be at B&H. Oh, really? So if I wait a little bit, maybe a used S5 will come up, because that's the best time to buy it, is when they start hitting the used and refurb market. Then they start getting discounted. I'm hoping for a Black Friday type deal. Apparently there's already a lot of Black Friday deals out there now. But I did see some used S1s for like $1,600, which is amazing, you know, but that camera wouldn't work for me because it's just too big and heavy for what I'm thinking, because I want to use it on my gimbal for video work. It's, you know, I don't really think I'd use it for photography. And Serge says, you just bought a Fujifilm X100 original, really? 120 bucks with 2 batteries and leather case. Nice, the original. That's kind of what kicked off the retro X100 series. I mean, obviously because it was the first one, but it did well because they're still making them. What are they up to now, like version 7 or F or T? They use a lettering system instead of numbers. So it's very hard to follow, and I don't think it's even sequential, right? It's like kind of mixed up. Hey Corna, how are you? Excuse me. So but I had an X100F for a little while. It's the one that came out before the current one, I believe. You know, before they put the tilt and everything on it. And I was not happy with it. And I think I could have got around working with the controls and everything. I didn't like the controls, but you know, you can use to anything, right? But it didn't have that articulating screen or flip screen, and no image stabilization, so I had to really watch my shutter speeds. I'm a little bit spoiled by image stabilization now because I was shooting a lot. I was trying to do street shooting at night like I do with my Olympus, and I really had to watch my shutter speeds because I got my pictures back and like half of them were blurry, motion blur, you know, and it's my fault, right? I'm not paying attention, but my eyes aren't good enough, especially at night. I can't see the back of the screen well enough to tell if there's image blur because everything looks blurry to me unless I really get you know, really far out. I'm a little bit farsighted. Yeah, the X100F definitely was a little bit soft too. Definitely you had to stop it down. I think it's f2.8 wide open or whatever that aperture was. It was a little bit soft too. So I was, like I said, I can get around some of the limitations of the camera, but all of them combined, you know, the lack of a tilt screen, because I like it to tilt up and down, the softness wide open, and the lack of image stabilization, and the fact that I spent $800 on it, I was like, it's just too many faults in it for me to keep it. And I rarely return things, very rare. So I turned it in and bought the Fuji X-T30 instead, right? So it was like $400 more to get this brand new, because the X100F was used. So I got this brand new with the f2.8 14 to 55 kit lens, and now this camera collects dust because it solved a lot of the problems the X100F had. You know, it has the tilt, right, that I can tilt out, and the controls are a little better. Not a lot. They're a little better than X100F. Just because it's a bigger camera, right? Simply because of that. But again, you know, and then the lens has IBIS in it, so that helped a little. I still have to watch my shutter speeds though, because IBIS is the Olympus IBIS is superior to any kind of lens image stabilization only. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed. So somebody asked me once, you know, do I regret buying any cameras? And I would say is this one, the Fuji X-T30. I might take it out. Maybe I'll take it out on a photo walk and give it another chance out to Great Falls. Let's see. I don't know. But it literally is collecting dust. And there's all kinds of dust in the lens hood and everything. I mean, it takes great pictures, but it is still bulkier and heavier than my Olympus gear with the same kind of focal length and stuff. And the battery life is horrible on it. I mean, little things, right? Little things that I could, you know, individually don't bother me. Like short battery life doesn't bother me because I can bring spares. You know, the lack of IBIS, you know, I can work with the shutter speed and the lens image stabilization. And the controls are a little bit small. Like I said, I've said this many times, the controls aren't great on the Fuji. Unless you like to shoot full manual, then they're fantastic. If you're a full manual shooter, yeah, it's really good. But I'm not, you know, I'm an aperture priority kind of shooter, or you know, time to time full manual for my enthusiast type stuff. But like I said, you kind of start stacking up things that are not compatible with you, and then the camera becomes unusable, right? For you on a regular. When you have a choice, like I do, I have a choice of a lot of cameras. If it was my only camera, I'd certainly enjoy it and really get a lot of use out of it. But when I go to grab my camera that I want to take with me, it's usually either the Pen F or the EM5 Mark III. And if it's for my professional work, it's the EM1 Mark III. I rarely grab anything else between my Nikon D750 and the Fuji X-T30 and my Lumix GX85. It's like those things just sit and do nothing, you know. And that's because the ergonomics, the image quality, the IBIS, the battery life, everything on the Olympus is almost perfect for me. The size and weight, etc., right? Okay. Hi, Fotis. How are you? Good morning. And the X100F was the 4th generation. Yeah, that's the one I had, though. I'm pretty sure it was the F. I'm getting an E300. Oh, hey. Awesome. Yeah, upload some Kodak sensor pics. That would be awesome. There was a person in my forum that was uploading some pictures from his E3. I think he had a 300, yeah. And they were really, the colors that come out of it are really amazing. Because the sensor, I think they really tried to emulate film, Kodak film with it. I'm guessing. They really did a good job though. And someone emailed me, said they got an E500 for like $10 at a thrift store with the lens. The E500 and the 300, I think both have the same Kodak sensor. So I'm going to start shopping those. Now that I have a lens, I don't need another lens or body. But if I get a lens with it, you know, it doesn't matter, right? It's so cheap. The new 100 to 400 is nowhere to be found. Really? I bet my local camera store has one. I can check. Oh, Noe. Hey, good morning. Hi, Elaine. Yeah, Elaine can't deal with slow autofocus. Yeah. I mean, there's always deal breakers too, right? There's very few deal breakers on a camera for me, but it's the summation of little things that would break the deal. Because if there's one thing wrong with the camera, you can usually work around it either, you know, with some kind of photographic technique or you know, some other way, right? You can work around it. But if there is a summation of problems that you have with the camera, that, yeah, it kind of ruins it. Oh, Corny, you use the XT2 for your vintage lenses. Yeah. I thought about that too, right? Buying an adapter. I wanted to buy like a maybe a Leica L, not Leica, but the Leica M adapter, and adapt some old vintage, you know, Leica lenses to it. Because, you know, it's you can do the same thing with Micro Four Thirds, but the problem with vintage lenses, it's hard to find a wide angle that's cheap and good, right? So APS-C would kind of lend itself a little more to, you know, the tighter focal lengths. So I could buy a 50 millimeter and it'd be a 75, right? Or I could buy a 35 millimeter, it'd be like a 50 millimeter. And you can find 35s vintage and 50s vintage, you know, all day long for a reasonable price that are really good. But finding a 24 millimeter vintage or wider that's good, wow, yeah, you're gonna pay some money for that. F for fourth V. Oh, Serge, wow, you cracked the code there, huh? The X100S is for second, T is for third, F is for fourth, and V is for 5. That makes complete sense to me. Huh. Yes, Tony, I agree. It's like an instrument, right? A musical instrument. The feel of the camera is really important. And that's what I tell people, you know, buying a camera is, you know, see how it feels in your hand, if you're comfortable with it, if you like it. Just like looking at it and holding it. You know, you don't have to get all in depth about the ergonomics and everything, but if you like how it feels in your hands and you like how it looks, that's a big plus. And then on top of that, you know, if you know somebody that can show you how to use it, if you're if you're a complete beginner, you know, that would be probably the #1 priority over look and feel and ergonomics even maybe, but those two would be at the top of my list when I make recommendations. And Noe says a good vintage wide angle lens don't exist. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, they aren't bad, but anything under 35 isn't so great. Yeah, that's what I mean. You can find wide angle cheap, but they suck. Finding a good wide angle is expensive. You know, you start paying $200-300 minimum for a good wide angle. Like I paid $180 for my 24 millimeter wide angle OM lens, the 24 f2.8, and that's a lot for an old vintage lens like that when you can buy the 50 millimeter f1.8 for like, you know, $25-30, right? And Corny says, oh, and the package with the OM Vico 50 f3.5 is on its way. Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll be cool. I forgot all about that lens, but that lens should be good. And Alaska says, I love the 2x feature on my 5 Mark III. I feel like I'm getting a fair deal rather than being trapped into another lens sale. Yeah, the digital teleconverter. I rarely use it, but time to time it comes in handy. Like when I go out with my 12mm lens, having a digital teleconverter helps. You know, because sometimes I don't want 12mm. I want tighter, right? So I use the digital teleconverter. And that all the more reason to really get good at improving your exposures in camera rather than, you know, trying to fix things in post, because when you use digital teleconverter, it ends up being a JPEG. And of course, you know, you can use the JPEG for composition purposes and then edit the RAW, right? Because you should have both files, the RAW and the JPEG. I mean, but if I use the digital teleconverter, I do my best to make sure the JPEG is what I want. You know, for my personal stuff, I try to minimize my editing and just use what I capture. Maybe slight edit, slight crop, but for the most part, editing my images like I do on my photo walks and things, I just don't got time for that. Well, it's not that. I just enjoy more doing it in camera than I do in post-processing. And Rob Shoots Photos says, hear about the Fuji XS? Yes, I did. It's supposedly going to have IBIS, light trail mode, high-speed 30 FPS shutter, similar controls to the M5 III, longer grip, and weather sealing. Yes, I saw a little bit the other day about it. So I haven't seen any. I think I saw a picture of it. It has a little deeper grip and everything. So I'm curious to see. It'll be curious, you know, it sounds like it's going to be a good camera when it comes out with all of those things that it says. And you know the image quality is going to be good. The only problem I have with Fujifilm is the native lenses are not cheap, right? There's a couple in there. A couple of the primes aren't bad, like 35 f2 and stuff. They're not terrible expensive, but yeah, the prices, I don't know. Not that Micro Four Thirds is super cheap, but I feel like I have a much bigger selection in a more affordable price range than you do in other camera systems, right? Like, you know, you can buy 25mm f1.7 from Panasonic for 150 bucks. And I don't know, these APS-C cameras, the lenses are so expensive, and the newer Sony full frames, if you want to buy the native, you know, manufacturer lenses, the lens selection is not as deep or as rich as Micro Four Thirds, and hence just by supply and demand, there's just not as many cheap or more affordable lenses that are good in those other systems. So that's the other reason I really like Micro Four Thirds, is the lens selection and the range of lenses in a more affordable price range is really good. And Jeff says, I want to build a PC to use for Olympus Workspace. Sorry, I had to chuckle a little bit because that thing is, Workspace is a pain. But that said, it doesn't use much GPU power. It won't hurt to get a good GPU for your computer for future purposes. If you're going to build one, I assume you're talking about a desktop. But you want to get the most powerful CPU you can. And I think the sweet spot is like the Ryzen 12 core. I forget the model number, 3700X or 38, but it's a 12 core, 24 thread. Kind of a sweet spot in price and performance when you're working with editing images. As far as video cards, you know, GPU, I would get at least and I think this is another sweet spot, is the NVIDIA GTX 2070 Super. You know, I think that's about a $400 or $500 card now. And then the new, you know, if you want to save some money now, because the GTX 3000 series has just come out. I don't know if it's for sale yet, but it might be worth saving money for that card rather than buying a card now. But like I said, with Workspace, it doesn't use a lot of GPU power, right? And you can get away with a GTX 1660 Ti. I think that is a really good card that'll keep you. And then when you got money or want to spend money on a 3000 series, you can, you know, throw that 1660, because 1660 Ti is like $150 card, but it has plenty of power for photo editing, more than enough. So I would say, yeah, and then get the there's different motherboards for the Ryzen processors. I can't remember which one to get, but get the latest one. You know, there's an older version that's compatible with it, and then they have a newer one. I can't remember the BIOS, the chipset on it anymore. But those two, and then at least 16 gig of RAM, and make sure you get the fastest. The Ryzen's will support, I think, 3200 RAM, 3200 megahertz RAM or gigahertz RAM, whatever it is. You'll see it'll say 3200, and then an SSD drive, because you're going to be sifting through thousands of photos, so you want to get a fast NVMe SSD. It doesn't have to be like the Samsungs. The Samsungs are very popular and they're very good, but I found a good value is the Intel 660p. And even though for sustained workloads it's not very fast, but for the kind of workloads you do in photography where you're just reading and writing very tiny files, it's fine. It's fine for that. So you can save a little money and just get an Intel 660p drive. But if you want to spend a little more, the Samsung is definitely better in that respect. So I think that sums it up, right? Memory, hard drive, CPU, GPU. What else is left? And you don't need to get all fancy pants with the water cooling and all of that, because I think the Ryzen CPUs come with their own fans anyway. So you're fine with that, unless you're trying to get super quiet. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. If you want to get into video, it's the same setup, except you need 32 gig of RAM minimum, and you want to get the 2070 Super, or you want to get the new 3000 series NVIDIA's coming out for video. The 2070 Super is about as good as you can get now, like off the shelf, but right around the corner is the 3000 series. And that's kind of what I'm waiting for. And they have a Ryzen 5000 series CPUs coming out. So I'm thinking early next year, I might switch over to a desktop system and use the Ryzen 5000 series CPU with a NVIDIA 3000 series GPU. And then of course the RAM and motherboard and hard drives that all go along with it. That's kind of my plan for next year, which is just around the corner, right? Thank God. Let's see. Noe says you should invest in cooling. You can have the best, but if you can't keep it cool, it won't perform up there reliably. Oh, you're talking about computers. Yeah. I think, the cooling, the water cooling and all of the high-end cooling systems that they have, they're trying to achieve two different goals, right, in a computer. One is to keep the system quiet, right, as quiet as it can, and still run, at full tilt. And then the other one is cooling, but the cooling side I feel like is more for people that like to overclock their systems and are constantly running full threads, right? They're running all 12 cores, 24 threads, like NVIDIA works, sustained workloads, where yeah, the the better your cooling, the better performance you're going to get over a 2-3 minute. After you get to about a 2-3 minute window, cooling becomes more important. If you're running sustained workloads for over 2 minutes, then yeah, cooling becomes more important. So then that's when you want to consider water cooling, because it'll be quiet and super cold, right? But I think for photography, you don't have those kind of sustained workflows, generally speaking. Like, let's say you're importing 500 photos, you're only using one thread really in the CPU, so it never gets hot. And if you're doing other bulk tasks, like a lot of times I'll do bulk HDR, bulk stacking, things that do use a lot of CPU power, those, yeah, maybe would benefit from a cooler system when you're doing them in bulk. You know, like I'll typically do 200-300 images in bulk and run a batch, you know, for my pro work. But for the most part, you know, that's something I think regardless of CPU and cooling system you have, you're not going to save much time in those kind of workloads in photography. The only time really I think cooling comes into play is in video work. And just my opinion, but I think in video work, yeah, having a better cooled system for sustained workloads, because in video, you know, you're running compression or I can't. Well, anyway, you're putting videos together for hours at a time, and it can take a half an hour to an hour to compress and create an MP4 file that you can upload to YouTube and stuff, or whatever you're gonna do. I don't know. Does that make sense, Noe? Cooling? Would you agree with that or not? Am I missing something? I don't know. I don't think I am. I think I got it. Sorry, Elaine, you're so tired. You'll be listening. Let the sound of my voice soothe you, put you to sleep. I get that time to time. People say that, you know, my streams are so boring they fall asleep. I like to think it's because my voice is very soothing rather than the stream being boring. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Juan says he doesn't use a dedicated video card with 8 gig of RAM. You can certainly get by with that, definitely. My little Intel laptop, you know, that I bought 5 years ago has a 4-core Intel i7 with 8 gig of RAM. And when you're editing photos one at a time, no big deal. Really, photo workloads are not heavy workloads on computers generally, but he was asking me specifically about Workspace, and Workspace is a CPU intensive software, so that's why I recommended a 12 core, you know, to maximize that. Cornet says the native Fuji lenses are not cheap, but they are also not cheap in design, but that's the reason why I switched almost completely to fully manual focus. Yeah, there's lots of good choices, third party and vintage, right, that you can use on any Fuji camera, certainly. And I thought about that. I got a Pair Gear, that Per Gear 25mm or whatever focal length it is in my wish list, along with some lens adapters. But I just never take the Fuji out, so I haven't pulled the trigger on those lenses. But I want to get that Per Gear because everyone says it's so good. Hello from Trinidad. Hey Rob, I can't see the preview for my RAW files on my computer. Yeah, I don't know why. If you're talking about the little thumbnails when you're browsing in your Explorer, File Explorer, but Olympus was supposed to be working with Microsoft to develop the whatever, so that you can see your thumbnails when you're in a file browser. Because even through third-party software, sometimes I noticed that it was not able to see the raw thumbnails. I think a lot of that's been corrected by now. But if you use Olympus Workspace to browse your thumbnails, you can, Olympus Workspace has it built in, and you'll be able to see the raw thumbnails with Olympus Workspace. But just using directly from your File Explorer in Windows, I know you can't. I don't know about Mac, but I know in Windows it won't show. And that's because Olympus has not provided Microsoft with the code. I forget what it's called. It's not a codec. It might be a codec to be able to see the thumbnails. Because all it has to do is read the embedded JPEG in the raw image, and that's the thumbnail you see. But they just haven't provided that. And of course, Microsoft's not going to waste their time with doing it themselves. Yeah, and I have not found any way to any downloads myself, Tony, that would let me look at the thumbnails in a browser, unfortunately. Not one that I would trust. I mean, you find things online, but they're from like kind of sketchy sources. I don't download them, but if I can find something more mainstream that works, I'll let everybody know. Because it would be handy to be able to see the frickin' thumbnails when you're browsing sometimes, rather than have to open up a software. Oh, Joseph Ellis? I don't know. He's probably working, trying to make a living. Because, YouTube doesn't really make any money, at least not when you're under 100,000 subscribers. I think once you get up over that, you start making money in other ways, through sponsorships and yada yada. You make money when you start to get up to 100,000, but when you're under that, it's really just pocket change. That's why whenever I get a donation, like buy me a coffee or somebody sends me something in PayPal, it's like 10 times more than I make ever on a video. Especially lately, I'm barely getting 1,000 views on any of my videos. It's terrible. So I do it a lot because, yeah, I want to build the channel and grow, obviously, that hopefully one day it makes some money, more than just pocket change. But I just enjoy doing it and helping people. It's what better way to pass the time than to help others, right? And this is the only way I really can help someone is through my channel, because I know a little bit about Olympus cameras, right? And a lot of people say I'm good at explaining things, so that's always nice to hear too. Oh, your computer shuts down. Yeah, just when you get to the important. Well, Noah, you do some hardcore editing, right? In yours with Lightroom and Photoshop. You use mostly Lightroom. I haven't seen too many Photoshop tutorials, come to think of it. You use the Lightroom. But yeah, Noe has a great channel for if you want to get into Photoshop editing, like in an anime kind of way, in infrared. He has a lot of great tutorials for that. Like if you want to get kind of really artsy fartsy, like I think Elaine, you'd probably really like his channel. But yeah, importing. Really, your computer shuts down on importing photos? It shouldn't. That's not a hardcore task. That's like a single thread task. Yes, John, I have seen that Olympus, that JIP will concentrate on high-end cameras. We'll see. We'll see. High-end, what does that mean? Just the OMD line and maybe the Pen F? I think that's what I read. And they're not going to worry about like the lower-end pen cameras. Because what does Olympus really offer right now? They offer the TG series. I don't know if that's high-end or low-end. It's kind of a high-end compact, right? So when they say they're focusing on high-end, that's that's a very generic statement. It doesn't really mean anything. So I would take that with a grain of salt. When they make very generic statements, if they say we're going to focus on the OMD this, you know, pen F this, then I'll take that a little more seriously. But when somebody just says, we're going to focus on higher end, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything to me, you know? Because one man's high end is another man's low end, right? Or I should say one person's high end is another person's low end. That just doesn't sound right. I should take all that back. Oh, you do. Nature does video editing on the Final. Yeah, Final Cut Pro is optimized perfectly on the Apple iMac. Every uh, every channel or every video that I've seen about reviewing Final Cut Pro, and then versus say DaVinci Resolve or even Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro just shreds it on the Mac because it's a Mac only app. But it's optimized really well for the Mac in a way that other companies have not even been able to come close to. And it's an excellent software by all accounts. Going to the dentist, oh my God, I hate the dentist. I did a photo shoot of a dental office the other day. Seeing all the little drills and everything. I got close-up shots of it too. I don't know why. They didn't use them. The client didn't use any of the close-up shots of the equipment. They just wanted this. They just wanted the office space. Okay, if Microsoft has the codec for the raw thumbnails, Tony, I haven't been able to find it, but that's good. Yeah, I would download from Microsoft. I know we were talking about that about 10 minutes ago, but yeah. Yeah, Joe's not consistent on social media, Joe Ellis, but he is one of the he's one of the best, I think, business orientated photographers that I've run into. Uh, Only because, you know, he's here in the US and I understand what he's saying a little better. Not so much, not because he has no accent, that's really nothing to do with it, but when he talks business and photography, it makes a lot of sense here in the US. I don't know about in other countries if it's, you know, how business works, how similar, you know, it's very different, the cultures and everything. But he's very good at explaining things as a business here in the United States. If that translates well to other countries, you guys can tell me because I don't know. But when I watch business videos from other countries, it doesn't feel quite the same or quite right here in the US. Obviously so, because different countries, different cultures, different laws. So if you're here in the United States, if Joe Ellis publishes anything or has anything on his channel, like when he was on my live stream, he really gave a lot of excellent advice when people were asking questions about business and wedding photography. And I recommend you look for that live stream where I had Joe Ellis on my channel. It was along with Jimmy Chang. Those two both gave really excellent advice. Jimmy Chang is another really good one. So if you're like in the UK, I think Jimmy Chang might be a little better channel for particularly because he does a lot of live streaming too, so you can ask him. He gives some of the best advice I've ever seen, you know, for wedding photography type things and for photography in general. So very strong. But yeah, and so Jimmy's a little more consistent, and you probably have better luck with Jimmy. But Joe definitely here in the US is, I would say, is leaps and bounds, you know, over me professionally speaking, you know. He's much more professional than I am. I'm just a, you know, a doty real estate photographer. You know, I just go out and do jobs here and there. But you know, being a wedding photographer, event photographer, or actual hardcore working photographer, you know, that I'm not. You know, it is my income, but I don't work that hard. You know. Yeah, Joe, but Rob, yeah, Joe is excellent. And a good 800 to 900 photo files per session. Yeah, that's a lot. That might be your memory card overheating too, right? If you're offloading that many photos off your memory card, because memory cards get hot too. You might want to think about using an external card reader under a fan. Noe, sorry Noe, I was talking to Noe there. He said he imports 800 to 900 photo files. So I would suggest using an external card reader in a metal casing and maybe a fan if, you know. And Liz says, does that mean not our OMD10s? Yeah. See, that's what I mean, Liz. I have no idea what high-end camera means from JIP perspective, right? Oh, thank you, Tony. The Olympus RAW codec. You may need the Microsoft codec camera pack. I didn't even know that existed, but that's awesome. Marco says Olympus smartphones with MFT sensor cameras. Wow. Somebody's coming out with that though, right? I think I saw some thumbnail from Jay Christina talking about doing having a camera with an Android operating system. That would be interesting. I mean, Samsung did it years ago. I mean, Casey over there, Camera Conspiracies, he's always like talking about how Samsung is the greatest camera maker ever, right? Like he loved their camera, even though they're like 5-6 years old, they're still really good. And but he has a point though. Samsung really, I forget which model it was, but they really kicked some butt when they came out, and then they just disappeared. But they had the Android camera, they had the other camera, the DSLR mirrorless style, and then they had a few others, you know, side jobs. But then they stopped, you know, for whatever reason. They said, you know, we make more money with TVs and stuff. But the problem with cameras, yeah, the biggest sellers are the EPL series, right, Rob? About so that's why I'm a little confused by that statement too, for that very reason. But just because they're big sellers doesn't mean they're making money for them, right? So I think it's pretty established that the high-end cameras make the most money, so they don't have to sell as many units or work as hard as a company overall. I'm not saying individually, but work as hard as a company to turn a profit when you're working with fewer cameras and making more money. So I think that's kind of what they're that's what they mean by high-end camera. They mean high-end profits. Maybe they don't necessarily mean high-end camera. Oh, thanks again, Tony. But what the heck was I talking about? I was talking about Sam. Oh yeah, because I've seen this statement a few times, right, about gear. You know, not necessarily camera gear, but like the EPL series might be very high volume seller, but it's not making a lot of money because camera gear is just hardware. You know, the profit margins are very thin, unlike say 4K televisions, right? You can go out and buy a 60-inch 4K, you know, Samsung, whatever, really high-end, you know, flat screen TV for like $400, right? And then when you want to buy a little 27-inch or 32-inch computer monitor, you know, you're spending $1,000 for a good one, right? You can buy lower end ones all day long for that price. But why is an equivalent 4K monitor for a computer 2-3 times the price as a 4K television, which in, you know, on the surface looks like they're going to give you the same image quality, right, in terms of display? It's not. There are differences, but they're close enough for most people, right? If you don't want to do critical color and all of that, you do want to buy a nice high-end monitor, but generally speaking, televisions have so much adware built into them, right? They're all smart TVs now. You're not going to buy a non-smart TV anymore at a low price, but they're all smart TVs. So a lot of the revenue that these TVs make are after the purchase, kind of like printers, right? If you buy a printer, you can buy a printer for $100 that does a good job, but then you're spending $100 on ink every month if you use it, right? So they always make it on the back end. And that's the hook that all these smart TVs have is they generate revenue on the back end through the operating system, the smart TV operating system. Either they're collecting personal information about you when you set it up, or through the sale of apps and things that you can get through their smart TVs, all different kinds of ways, right? That's why some hardware is amazingly cheap, is because it's kind of built in. There's a lot of built-in after the sale revenue that they can potentially earn, either through the sale of your personal information or through the sale of apps and things within the product. Oh, I don't know why, Rob. I put it up yesterday, and there's probably about 30 or 40 images for the photo editing stream today. What time is it? Oh, yeah. So it starts in about 20 minutes. Okay, Noe, thanks for dropping in. Always good to see you. And like I said, Noe Anime Photography has a channel on YouTube. If you look it up for Noe ALZ, you'll find him. And you should check it out if you want to get kind of artsy fartsy with your photography. Yeah. Oh, hey Terry, how are you? Yeah, John. Yeah, the high end, when you're selling business to business, I imagine there's more profits there as well, right? Because you can be the only company that makes this specific piece of equipment or gear or optic, and but business a lot of times is about networking, who you know, and I don't know. I was never in big business. I've worked for very big companies, but it was in the financial industry, not in a technical firm. Uh, I was the tech guy at the big financial company, but I was not working at a technical company. They'd never hire me because man, these guys, there's some serious hardcore technical people out there, which a lot of you are actually. Uh, well, way beyond me. I'm just a casual type technical guy, right? But yeah, usually it's all about connections in business, right? Yeah, artsy fartsy is what he's all about. Definitely check his channel out. For anime, infrared. Very very artsy type photographer, and he's well recognized photographer in his own genre. Noe is, so definitely check it out if you want to experiment with that kind of style of photography. It's pretty fun, if you're in the right situation. Well, I should say, when I'm in the right mood, I might try and venture into that. Like, I wanted to try some of the anime stuff. I experiment a little with. I watched one of your tutorials, Nui, about how to edit anime things. And I was having very limited success uh, because the kind of images I took were not conducive to that type of editing. Right? I tried to find images in my portfolio that would work with that style of editing, and I just couldn't. I had one or two that were kind of close, but those images, it has to be a pretty good light, nice bright day with not too many harsh shadows, and good architectural lines with some mix of plant life. I don't know how to explain it, but anime photography style. I didn't have anything in my portfolio that would work for it. You know, Rob, come to think of it, uh, Rob Shoot Photos, you know, if you see either this stream or the photo editing live stream, in both streams in the comments section, I do put a link to the photo that I'm editing that you can edit. There's a link to submit your photos, but there's also a link to the photo that you can edit. That's one of mine. So you could have got it from this stream's description, unless I messed it up, which is possible. But generally speaking, I always put the link to my photo in both streams on the same day. John Softly, how are you? I have a question. In fact, I have loads of questions, but they all get answered by Rob Sator. Oh, you're funny. I appreciate that, though. Hello, Peter from Maine. Okay, so we're in the same time zone, but it's cold up there. Have you guys already finished your fall season yet? Like, is all the leaves gone? Or is it like peak now? It's probably peak right now because it's still fairly green around here. And Music Sound Gear, how are you? You just getting in? Let me check something. Yeah, we're good. Maine is one of my favorite places. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been to Maine. Because the very small window that I want to go up there when it's at least better than 60 degrees. Very small, I would imagine, right? Let me see. Like right now, it is 56 degrees where I am now. Maine. Let's try Maine Township, Maine. 44 degrees over there. So it's only a 10-degree difference here. So 44 degrees in Underwood, Maine. Here in Chantilly, Fairfax, kind of where I am, is 56. So it's 12 degrees cooler over there. And then it's going to be 57 today in Maine. And then for kind of where I am today, 72. It's almost 20 degrees cooler, right? Yeah, so going to Maine has not been a high priority for me. I hate the cold. Even going to Pennsylvania, which is just a little bit north of me, freaking cold there all the time. And John Yutze says that you saw some foliage colors in New Hampshire. Oh, nice. Yeah, John, I think, are you on Flickr or, because I feel like I've been seeing some pictures from you lately. Either that or on my forum, but I feel like, yeah, I've seen some pictures, probably in the photo editing live streams, but I'm not thinking of that. I'm thinking of something else. Like you posted some awesome pictures either on Instagram or Flickr. Let me take a quick look. Unless the delay. Yeah, I'm not seeing. Wait, that's the wrong page here. No, probably, I don't think it was here. I saw Randy's stuff. Yeah, it wasn't on Flickr. It was somewhere else, I thought. Okay, so it's not you at all. And Peter says in Maine, it's just past peak. Lots of nice browns. If not for the winter, everyone would live here. Come up and do some winter surfing. Really? Loads of people surf all year long. Are they out of their freaking mind? Oh my God. I'm too old for that. I don't like going in the water. Plus surfers are like just shark bait. I think that's why Maine is, that's the only time you hear Maine in the news is when there's a shark attack. Otherwise, you never hear about Maine in the news unless there's been a shark attack. So, but it is beautiful there. The images I've seen from Maine, oh my God. Oh, Thomas, yeah, Georgia, yeah. That's a little bit too far south. It's a little bit too muggy. I'm thinking South Carolina, North Carolina, kind of that area. But Georgia, yeah, Georgia I've passed through a few times on my way to Florida. I should stop in Georgia though and just see what's going on over there. I need to do a road trip, right? And then I can live stream from the hotel during the road trip. That would be fun. I'd have to tell all my clients though, you know, no photo jobs this week. I'm not going to be in town. Which in real estate, it's a little bit of an issue, right? Because a lot of times your photo jobs, you have to be very time sensitive. And if they have to use another photographer, I'm out. I had this conversation. The risk of sharks is so low, it's worth the risk. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I used to snorkel a lot, so that's like different than surfing. Because in surfing, I don't know. Surfing, I always think of like, I don't know, it looks like fun. I don't know. I should try it one day. I need to get back in shape though. And Brian says, I noticed the Canon speed boosters and converters have electrical lens contacts, so Canon lens more compatible. Okay. Yeah, I've seen those too. Like they're starting to come out, right? Or they have been out. These autofocus Canon MFT adapters, so that you can attach an autofocus Canon lens, have autofocus and aperture, you know, like have full control like it's a native lens. But I haven't seen anyone test one. And they run about, I think they're around 150, 180 bucks. So they're not super cheap. Maybe I saw one for $90. I know what you're talking about though. I was looking at some. Let me pull it up here. MFT Canon to MFT adapter. So yeah, this thing here, right? $218 for that one. Here's one, 136, the Viltrox. So it's not a focal, see this one is a focal reducer and a autofocus adapter, right? That's why this one's 200. And then this one's $136, but it's, you know, simply an AF type. No, it doesn't do a focal reducer. I gotta find my focal reducer. So there's some here. I don't know how good they are, and I haven't seen any reviews on them. And I personally, I'm not that interested in it because I don't have any. I have like one Canon lens that isn't a. It's in its case and just sitting somewhere. And it's a zoom lens at that, so I would never use it, especially on Micro Four Thirds. Yeah, Thomas, the winter. He says summer weather, especially Atlanta and north, is the same as DC area, just as muggy. Yeah, I don't mind the heat and humidity here in DC, but I feel like it would be longer in Georgia, right? That window of hot and muggy. I don't know, but I might have to consider Atlanta. You know, or Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah. Uh, I've been to Atlanta a couple of times actually, and it's a nice city. But that was like 20 years ago. I haven't been there in 20 years. Come to think of it, when I used to work for one of those big companies, I used to travel to Atlanta to one of their offices down there. Uh, but yeah, the speed boosters and things, I think they're okay. The the focal reducer, speed booster type, they're okay. You're going to lose a slight bit of image quality, and your tolerance for that is going to be anywhere. It's very subjective. I bought the Viltrox one, I'm pretty sure, but I don't know where it is. I haven't. It's been lost for about a year now. It might be time for another one. It make me feel right at home, huh? Because the traffic is terrible in Atlanta. Yeah, fortunately, I have to look at it, because the thing about being a photographer, right? You're not limited geographically too much, right? Like if you like open fields, you can go anywhere really as a photographer and still do okay. And as a business, like in real estate, like I do real estate photography, I could go to any fairly major metropolitan area in the country and find work, right? Uh, it'd be a little harder in more rural areas as an architectural real estate photographer. Just, it's just supply and demand, right? You don't want to go to a city or a town with a population of like 1,000 people. You're not going to make money as a real estate photographer. But any metropolitan area, you'll be fine. Oh, hey, Roberto. Yeah, that sounds about right. What time is it now in Australia? I mean, Australia's a big country, though. You got like 5 time zones. I don't know. You got a lot of time. I think you got all 3 time zones in your one country. Uh, or multiple time zones. I don't know how many. Um, but I think the way you're positioned on the Earth, even though you're a much bigger country, physically than the United States, we have the same number of time zones because you're closer to the equator than we are. Because we're a little bit further up. I don't know. What do I know about geography? I know nothing. 11:20 now. Wow, that's weird. That's weird, Roberto. I don't know why YouTube gave you the wrong time. Sorry about that. I mean, I know when I posted it, for the first few minutes after I posted it, I did have the wrong time, and I had to go back and edit the timing. And seriously, it was like in the first 5 minutes of posting that video, I realized I put the wrong time, so I had to change it. But maybe that's what messed it up, is I put the wrong time initially. That's possible, but he was told 21:30. That's weird. Maybe that would explain why the where's my page at? That might explain why the viewership is like half what it normally is compared to my other days that I stream. Um, Because right now I'm showing what, 38 people here. Typically I have 70 or 80, right, on my other days. So, double basically. Some days are better than others. I had one day where I had 200 and some people at once. And that was a long time ago, but I used to get a regular crowd of around 100 people. But it's kind of been cut in half since then. So I'm down to 70, 80 during like Sunday, Thursday, and then Tuesdays is still new, but 30, 40 people, that's fine. Nice small group. (10:22) in Brisbane. Oh, it's late. So the photo editing live stream is really late. Oh, okay. You're just busting my chops. All right. Speaking of which, I need to go up and chop up some photos here on my photo editing stream soon. Yeah, Terry, the daylight saving, it should be adjusted for automatically on YouTube, right? But yeah, I hate daylight savings. They need to pick one and stick with it. Because I'm already thinking ahead now about, the time moving back an hour. That's going to help me with my sleep schedule. I'll be able to get up an hour earlier without really getting up an hour earlier. But I'm already thinking about it. I wish that was something. One less thing I had to think about is daylight savings. It feels like it happens on a monthly basis, even though I know it's twice a year. But it feels like every month I'm dealing with daylight savings. It's a constant pain in the butt when you try to sync up times with people around the world. Especially, I would imagine everybody's doing these Zoom calls and streaming, right? Imagine the frickin' chaos there's going to be on daylight savings day when everybody's going to be off. Because some people, do daylight savings, some people don't, and everybody's worldwide, and it's just going to be a frickin' nightmare that day. So I would just stay offline, maybe go in your bunker and not leave the house for one day. uh, yeah, only 17 likes. That's okay. Yeah, in Australia, it's a big problem with different states, right? Okay, well, everyone, I have to move on to my photo editing live stream. So if you go to my channel, you'll see a link to it there if you want to join me there, where I edit photos that you send in, or you can edit one of mine that I put out for you to download. But it's always a lot of fun chatting with everyone. I'd love to stay longer, but I need to move on to the next stream. So thanks again for joining me today, and I'll be back on Thursday, God willing.